You,
Hello.
you guys, you guys are asking the wrong questions. Okay,
Okay.
we're just
That's
gonna.
right.
It's
That's right.
a fiery Monday. I'm not pulling any punches. Grr.
What are some of the biggest questions that we get asked, Austin? Because
I
I got a couple on my head.
Now it depends on the context of on whether these are good questions or not. But I feel like 90% of the questions we get are for some like minute thing in After Effects about like how do I do trim paths or like what is the best way to ease this particular type of thing or what shape. I got a question yesterday. It's like how do you shade your shapes? And I was like I just put a gradient on it. That's all. But like it feels like most of these questions just boil down to the same sort of goal, which is
Hmm.
just how do I get more jobs or how do I become a better like creative professional motion design person? And I can tell everyone confidently that I mean easing is important, yes, like the craft is important, but what specific effect you're using or those sorts of things just are so negligible compared to the vast majority of other things that you could be doing. And that's what we're going to talk about today.
Damn right.
But I
Damn
feel like
right.
those are the main questions that we get are just like some specific effect, what keyframe to use, or like what comp size, or like I love the export settings question. Like the most important thing is gonna be like if your pixels are 10% sharper when you export them rather than like getting compressed on social or something. Just-
I find that a lot of the questions are simplifications, and they kind of are are telling in that that person doesn't necessarily know where to start in that subject. Like, what's the best way to price your work? I'm like, that is
You're kind
that's
of
such a topic.
yeah.
Like
That's where it
there's a
comes
lot
from.
there.
Yeah, it's loaded questions. I feel like I get a good amount of questions that are basically just take everything you've learned from the past however many years and just dump it in my DMs, but like in 2 sentences, or I'm not gonna read it. You know?
Yeah.
Like
Hmm.
what?
It's like I don't have all that knowledge just like written up for you.
No.
That's why we have a daily motion show, so we can talk about it. Welcome, guys.
I see, says.
That's what we'll be doing.
So I say, you're not gonna know what I just did until a second, but that's okay. It's Shoham says first. In Motion says third. JC says, how do I add a keyframe in After Effects? Olgerd says, hi everyone, how does one ease? And In Motion says, what an introduction. They all best be ready for the knowledge bombs we're about to drop. Here's how I'm gonna, you know what? I actually have Illustrator pulled up today so that I can help visualize some of these things as I'm discussing them through fun puns and such. So let me get that screen for you. Here you go.
Okay.
Okay, so when somebody comes in with the question like or the thought process of like I need to make the best video, like how do I make the best video to get the right client or whatever, they're searching off over here, right? And they've got like X marks the spot over here, okay? But really they're missing like this giant amount of work that needs to be done over here that doesn't even have to do with any of the actual work at all. It could be complete crap, but if you're focusing on this section, which we'll talk about what it is in a second, you're going to do vastly better than someone who might be the very, very, very best at motion from a technical standpoint, but is just focused on like, how do I keep getting better at the craft, you know? That's such a small part of it. So we're gonna throw the little craft ball inside of our big old thing that we'll talk about today. And
Ball.
what we'll talk about is passion. Passion is the big ball. And the reason that it is so important is because you are simply not going to be able to sustain the level of growth that you need in this craft bubble if you don't have this. This precedes any focus on like a particular effect or how to ease things or whatever. Like those are the things you figure out along the way, guided by this. Like I get questions that's another thing. I get questions all the time on like, what's the course that I should take? Like the course, as if there is just one that makes you an amazing motion designer, you know? Or like, what specific YouTube tutorial should I watch or something? I'm like, I wish someone made a YouTube tutorial on how to do this, so we will fill that need today, I guess.
I think that everyone is kind of looking for a silver bullet, and
it just doesn't exist.
It does. It's not there. It's not there.
Too many people are looking for this extremely easy, like one-step way to just be good at this thing, and we'll get into some reasons why that might be later. But when people ask me that question, I just find it funny because Noah and I are both essentially self-taught. I mean, the occasional tutorial here and there, but the only time I would ever watch tutorials is when I already had an idea of what I wanted to do and just couldn't get past some technical step or something. Like the ideation and the design and whatever was happening in here, I just couldn't translate that to the program necessarily. So if I needed to like make a portal for something, I'm like, I can see what the portal looks like in my head, but I need to know what effects to use to make that happen. So I would go to YouTube and look for like a portal tutorial or something. That's a pretty like specific example, but I think y'all get what I'm saying. This passion is what was driving me to even want to make that in the first place. You know, I think that a lot of people will be confused as to why some people will do. I'm sure we've all probably had this at some point. You see somebody online that's making like kind of okay work, or you just don't think that it's quite as good as something that you made recently, and it can be really easy to feel slighted with like, I just made the best thing I've ever made, but like Joe McGee over here with the piece of shit just got like all these different jobs or whatever, and I'm sitting here with nothing, you know? I'm sure we've all had that sort of experience. And I can tell you why Joe McGee got those jobs. If you're even like, if you already know who that person is, if you're following their work or whatever, that's already a pretty good indicator of like, what are they doing that you're not? And this isn't all just going to boil down to like do social media, because that's not what it is. But although that is a pretty big part of it, there is a whole other side to this motion design game that is literally just who can be the loudest, as a way to get work anyway, and make connections and those sorts of things. Gordo says, I saw a great analogy recently. You can't run a marathon by reading books on how to run. You need to get out there and do it. Applies to motion too. Facts. And that's a really great way to summarize what self-teaching means to me. It's just being willing to roll around in the mud and know you have no idea what the hell you're doing, but like you have this drive to want to create something, you know, and figuring out how the hell to do that along the way, rather than like, yes, I need to read these motion design books before. I see that so much too, man. Now I'm just getting into gripes, I guess, but like I see so many people that are like, I'll do motion design when I have blah, 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 or I'll reach out to clients when I have blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, you're wasting so much valuable time. Like, it's great that you're learning, but like, why not do that at the same time? Because the best way to learn is going to be actually doing the thing. Like, the theory only goes so far behind most things. At a certain point, you have to just get the on-the-job training in order to fulfill a greater, like, motivation.
That's literally how our brains are set up. We would not survive as just a species if we didn't learn by doing and learn from our mistakes. It's the best way to learn. So, use it.
Roll around in that mud. Get nasty with it.
Like, come on in. The mud's
fine. Okay, so let's. What context do I need to give here in order to make this make sense? Let's just give that scenario. Okay, so I'm a motion designer who is seeing all of these other people getting work, and I don't understand why I'm not getting work. I'm sending cold emails. I'm reaching out to people on LinkedIn. I'm doing everything that Motion Hatch is telling me to do. And for whatever reason, other people are getting work and not me. Here's usually the problem. The people that are getting work, people just know who they are. It doesn't matter how many people know who they are, but some people know who they are. There are some great ways to go about this on both sides. There's some people who are very active on social media. Like, I mean, Ravi is really pushing in that direction, and trying to show ourselves as people, and that gets people talking, you know. But there's also a ton of creators that don't even show their faces or really show their personality a whole lot in their posts and things, and they'll just post motion. But there's all sorts of people that are at least doing it, you know? It's part of getting work is just showing that you're in the room at all, you know? And that is such a bare minimum amount of effort needed for that. Passion, I think, is everybody's superpower, because if it can drive Noah and I to be like continually putting stuff out, and at least like y'all know about Ravi and we get to like meet people through that, whatever, that means we're already just like 99% of people are not going to be willing to do any of that. You know, 99% of people will be too worried about how people are perceiving them, or too worried about the work that they're posting not being good enough or whatever. But Noah and I just love making content. And that's why Ravi is doing well. We get a bunch of people on the client side that will reach out to us wanting to work with us, and then we get on a call and they're like, how do you guys have time for this? And we're like, we don't. We just make time for it. That's it. Like, straight up. And we brought on 2 video editors and blah, blah, blah. I realize I'm kind of jumping all over the place. This is why videos have scripts, I guess, but
We'll just make a script out of this video.
yeah, that's fine. Basically, the thesis I want to prove here today is that finding something that you genuinely care about and making sure that that's what you're doing, and not really giving a shit about other things unless you care about them, like being driven by this passion thing, is like a surefire way to succeed at things. And sub thesis underneath that, it's a surefire way, because if what you are incredibly passionate about, if you find that thing that you can really lean into, and you just like find yourself wanting to do it in the same way that you might want to play like video games or watch TikTok or some other shit like that, but it's productive, you are in a very, very, very small group of people that will even care about that thing in the same way that you do. If you're the person that cares the most in the room about what industry you're in or whatever, you will succeed, because you will be willing to put in the time where other people won't. Whether it's not always successful. Like, we talked about that Jack Conte thing on Friday. I liked this visual that he made when he was talking about successes and failures and stuff. And he has this trash can, and there's a bunch of paper balls that he's throwing, you know, and like one might make it in the trash can, and there's a bunch of other failures that are around it, you know, that didn't make it or whatever. But that's the thing. If you're the person who cares the most about what you're doing, you're going to at least be willing to throw out 50 paper balls. You might only have 3 of them hit the trash can, but most other people are probably only willing to throw out like 10, and they might have 1 hit in there, you know? That that passion drives you to be able to create the just sheer volume of content and tries at things to do well. And continue improving. It's not about like the silver bullet of just like, I care about this, so everything I make is going to be amazing. It's the fact that like, if you care most and you have that passion, you are much more likely to be able to weather the shitstorm of failures that you will encounter, that a lot of other people will just be like, this isn't really for me, or like, I'll just do the baseline to get by or whatever, you know?
Yep. That passion is a weapon. Use it to be consistent. Shit is so powerful.
So let's dissect that a little bit.
Passion?
Sure. Why not? What is it? What's that mean to you? How does that show up in
Passion,
your life?
man, passion is that little bit of craziness, that a little bit of obsession over things that you just can't really shake. It's that part of your brain that just really wants it. You know what I mean? I think that it's someone was asking in the chat earlier about like what happens if you lose that passion. You got to re-find it, man.
Yep.
There's probably it's not that it's gone, it's that it's hidden. It's still inside you. You probably have messaging or something around you. You're telling yourself bad shit so that it's suppressing it. You know what I mean? Like, oh, I'm not good enough. That kind of messaging can totally cloud passion because it takes the fire out of it. You know what I mean? Covers it up. But it's gotta be like you gotta approach it from like I would do this if nobody cared. I would do this whether people are there to see it or not. It's whether you would do something in a vacuum. I think kind of helps point to whether or not you're really truly passionate about it. And another thing they were asking about if it goes away, if it's more linked to like the child you or the older you. I think that it's regardless of your age, it's there. I think that as people grow older and society is society, people learn to kind of hide bits of themselves and be more and more worried about how other people are perceiving them and therefore shelter and shutter their passion. You know what I mean? And I think that is one of the biggest travesties. But if you're able to keep that alive, not really care about how people are perceiving you because you love something, then I think that's how you're going to truly be successful. Is if you, and I was talking about this yesterday, actually. I think that you really have to just go for it and just enjoy the thing despite what people might think. You know what I mean?
Agreed. And I mean, y'all in chat, let me know if you agree and have experienced this as well. But I feel like when people lose that passion, a lot of the time, because somebody in chat said, or Nick Notion says, most people don't pick up design if they don't have a passion for it to begin with. However, you still need consistency in order to excel in the medium. I think a lot of people friend zone their passion. I think that's kind of what happens. So you find this little bubble of something that you like, and it's whether it's keeping it as a hobby or it's just like you find this baseline level that you're comfortable with exploring this topic that you're interested in, right? And so you keep it in this little box. You keep it in this little box, right? But little did you know, there are so many little tendrils of other things that can just plug right in to that passion you have. But a lot of people don't want to mess up the relationship they already have with their passion. You're great friends with this passion, so you don't want to screw it up. You don't want to get committed and come with the complications that like a real relationship has, you know? Hopefully that metaphor comes through. Anyway, but if you take some time to like remove that box and just really dive in to this, to your passion, what you end up finding usually is like at a certain point, the baseline level that you were working with will get boring. Like it's whether it comes from a burnout because you're like pushing it too hard. That was me with the loops. I was doing them every single week and you know, it just quickly wrung all the passion out. And it just wasn't as fun anymore. But then you get little things over here like, oh, wait, now that I've done this and I know some of the successes of this thing, wait a second, there's also this like, I can make content out of that. Huh, that's interesting. Or, oh, now that I'm streaming, we have this community. Huh, okay, that's something I kind of always wanted to do as well. And you just keep finding all these different things that you can plug in that are like associated with this passion. Like for me, if I were to label this would just be Ravi. And I'm not saying that it's like it's not motion design for me. That's not what the passion is. That's what it used to be, or it used to just be design in general. But for me, where that like creative pull takes me is this question of like, what crazy shit can I get up to with Ravi right now? You know, like what nutty things does Ravi let me do now that I've like built all this stuff into it? And so basically anything in my life. But I mean, no, I know that we both struggled with this. Like we would be at odds sometimes about this thing. You're a very exploratory person, and I have seemed at least relatively like plugged into this dream for like 10 years, you know? So shoot, what was I saying? I read something from chat and I got lost. But okay, I got it. Okay, so like you're interested in modeling and photography and all sorts of different creative outlets and things. And I mean, I top of motion, like also graphic design, and I've also always enjoyed making videos and those sorts of things, right? And so for me, and I mean, you already know this, it's more just communicating it for the audience at this point. Ravi has just been this thing to where I'm like, I already have this baseline passion, okay? Like I can be so interested in this design thing, but like there are other things I want to do. And a lot of people would just say like, okay, I'm going to do that as a hobby or whatever. But no. For me, whatever I'm doing it's got to be like 100%. I don't need to be like the best at everything I'm doing. I don't think that's possible for anyone. However, I do want to be one of the best at whatever I'm doing. And that's also just the thing that the passion drives me to, you know? I simply will not do anything. I don't give a shit about something unless I can really sink my teeth into it and make progress and be good and make an impact at that thing, you know? And what that means to me is anytime something pops up, I can always find a way to plug it into this like baseline foundation that I've already got, you know? I started doing live streams while I was animating those loops, and it wasn't because of Ravi. We weren't planning on selling anything with it, and we still don't. But when I was a kid, I had a Minecraft YouTube channel, and I would sit there and stream for nobody. There's nobody there watching me play games or whatever. But like, that was a long lost childhood thing for me, you know? And so now I can be like, wait, these are the parts of this medium that I really enjoyed, and now I can actually like being able to use that foundational passion for something as a way to connect with people. That's your silver bullet. That's why passion is the superpower, because if you can get in this mode where you're so excited about something where you literally get feverish over it, like I will sit here like right now, my head is warm because I am just excited about what we're talking about and I'm putting my energy towards it and whatever. That is something that will resonate with people. It's that bit of crazy that Noah was talking about, the little bit of like, I need to do well at this thing. And like, look at how much I care. Like, I'm genuinely so interested in these things and let's explore these different facets of it and whatever. A lot of people have that, I feel like. Like, I mean, y'all would not be watching this daily motion show if you didn't give a shit about motion, or, I mean, you know, you guys get it. But what most people won't do is let that passion actually be shown to other people, except for back within this box, which is really unfortunate because I feel like it's letting people see. So like a lot of people are just like this. They're just like, I love motion design. Motion design. But you don't really get much more than that out of a lot of people. They might tell you like, I like 2D, or I like such and such part of this thing, you know, like kind of surface level, like identifiers and ways to label things, you know? But if you can if you can show and if you can open up to this more like nebulous thing and just embrace like the emotional side of what this is, whether it's motion design or something else, that is so much more complex than you can put a label on. It's a feeling that you're able to give people. That's where inspiration comes from in terms of inspiring other people or getting inspiration for yourself, because showing this to somebody else it breaks your walls down a bit, you know? That's some vulnerability there. Like, I really care about this thing and look at how much I care.
That's right.
That's an incredibly vulnerable position to be in, because some people won't like what you're doing. But also, to me, that's a good signal. It would be really boring if everyone liked what you were doing. That's probably not making much of a statement, you know?
It's also incredibly powerful to just be able to sit in that and be like, hey, I really care about this. This is like part of who I am. I really love this. And then to then take that and be like, and I don't really care if you like it or not.
Yep.
Like that's both vulnerable and powerful. Strive for that.
Yeah. I mean, I just, shoot. Say.
There's so much here.
No, there is. There is something that I was going to get into with it. What was the first thing you said?
The first thing I said was that it's a powerful thing to be able to sit in that position of I really care about
not
this.
really caring, or that like, but not caring what other people are thinking about it necessarily.
Yeah, because you're gonna do it anyway.
Right.
I think it's also so important to like have a darn good time doing it.
That's what it was.
Because I've kind of visualized passion as like an eternal fire. It never fully really goes out, but you can certainly stifle it.
Yeah.
And you can feed it. And I think that if you blow on it too hard, it's gonna kind of die a little bit. But if you blow on it just enough and you like use it, you know what I mean? It's gonna grow into a blaze. And travel in interesting areas. Like it's not necessarily stuck and like, oh, I like this thing specifically. That may not be what you like for the rest of your life. That may not be it. It can like reach out and spread like a fire, you know, and let it. You got to have fun doing the things that you're doing. Otherwise you're going to stop doing them. That's
Have your
just
Agario moment. Keep gobbling up other things to keep it interesting. That's really what it is. And
that's so right.
I'm definitely sounding, I mean, to some people, I will totally sound like the work is your life thing right now. But here's the thing, for me it is. And that's just because work feels like a very different thing to me. I don't, that label comes with a lot of connotations that people have of bosses that don't let you have your independence or autonomy, or that just want to tell you what to do and it stifles your creativity, or just working for the man and blah, blah, blah. Like those sorts of things is what that conjures up, you know? But here's the thing. I'm in an incredibly lucky position because it's never felt that way to me. I have never felt like this is my work. Especially if I zoom out, you know, I'm making pretty fucking pictures for a living. Like, come on. And don't get me wrong, like there's money involved, obviously. Like I treat it as a job. But that's also part of the reason why Ravi has succeeded where others haven't in some places, is purely just because it does feel like we're all just kind of goofing around and having a fun time. And that only happens because it's driven by truly just only doing what we want to do. And I know not everybody's in the position to do that, but hey, if you're sitting there and you're feeling like your job just is not what you want it to be, or you've been in motion for a really long time and it's feeling kind of stale or whatever, like find some ways to switch it up. Like use that passion, you to lean on that to let it sort of be your compass and figure out where you actually want to go. Because for me, burnout and most of those things like that are associated with like the negative qualities of work are because I'm not actually following where I want to be creatively or what I want to be doing. And the second that I really stop and just let myself be like, what does that actually look like to me? In terms of what would I actually like to be doing right now? When I follow that, then that passion returns like immediately. And I'm able to just follow that thing instead. Like there will be some days where Noah and I just don't have any fun working on some client projects. And we'd much rather just be filming and making like After Effects game shows or those sorts of things. And some days where it's vice versa. Like some days you don't want to do the vlog, or some days I'm sure we could probably go without the show or whatever, you know? But like, I think we give ourselves enough opportunities at this point to really just like sit and be like, what would actually like keep my meters up, you know? Like as long as I've got
meters up.
One thing I can really be passionate about during the day, then like I'm totally set. Winter said hustle culture is no bueno. I had to stop. I mean,
yeah, because it's not necessarily driven from passion. It's driven
Yeah.
from like this social obligation of like, and that's not sustainable. And so of course it kills people.
Right.
But if you're like, man, I fucking love this thing that I'm doing, I'm gonna do it every goddamn day because it feeds me. And I really do believe that work feeds you. Like it feeds some part of you. Doing something that you're proud of, doing something that you love, like it brings life to you that like a delicious croissant just can't. It's just like, I think that's the way to go. You know what I mean? Hustle culture is bad, but like passion culture is fantastic.
I feel like they're very, very close in terms of what the goal is, but I feel like hustle culture, hustle culture, I think, is built in a way to where it's just, you just have to work. You just have to keep, like, just put in whatever amount that you can, and the most that you put in, that's what will make you succeed. But the trick is just take that mindset, but like only do the shit that you actually want to do and don't feel like you just have to do it. And that's how you make it positive and not something toxic, I think.
Yeah.
And that's where most of it comes from for us. I feel like it's truly about just zooming out and looking at like, what do I actually want to be doing, or what am I missing out on, and how do I integrate that into what I'm doing? And for a lot of people, it'll be a difficult thing to navigate because we've got, you've got families to support, or just things that you need money for, you know? And that's where you get hustle culture from, and like one for the meal, one for the real, those sorts of things. But I'm telling you, like, whatever you can do, I truly feel like anybody can find a way to like repossess this passion for motion, especially. I feel like I see way too many people jaded in this industry for how young of an industry it is. And a lot of that is just because they're doing the same thing over and over and over again, and they're not really getting the chance to express what they actually care about and what they want to be doing. Like, I will advocate for, and it's not just to get work or whatever, although it really, really does help. Like, it is the number one way to make you stand out. But I was just talking to one of our review connections the other day, and it's so easy to just not talk about the things we're interested in, you know?
Which is so strange.
And most people don't really get the chance to do that necessarily. Like, you really have to force yourself to do it. Or not force yourself. You have to actively take the direction of doing this. But whether it is like what Umseti has been doing, and as he's storyboarding on his project, he will literally just pull his phone out and show what he's doing and talk about it. Or screen recording and showing what you're working on and talking about it that way. That makes you invaluable as a motion designer or just a creative in general. You can only show so much process by running your animation through GIF gun and showing that you use nulls. Sorry to say, but it's just so impersonal.
Oh my God,
it doesn't mean anything. What people really care about is how you're thinking behind the motion. Like, the fact that I made a loop on Saturday and 25 of y'all were sitting here the whole time. Well, 300 people total, but like over that time, 25 of y'all were just sitting in here, just listening to me talk about what the hell I was doing. Like, that shows something there. Nobody would watch that if I didn't give a shit about it. I'm just like, God, I have to do this, whatever, you know? Nobody would care about that. In the same way that, like, us doing this show, no one would give a shit about it if Noah and I were just like reading off of a script and it's just like, this thing happened today, or this is good for motion design, yay, woohoo, whatever. Like, we get in these, just like, Noah and I are in this conversation. We get really present when we're here, you know? And I think about it from a client perspective. If you want to get work, who would you rather have at your side? Someone who, sure, has some really great technical efforts, and you see a couple of their posts on Instagram, sure, yeah, that's great. You'll get some good animation out of that. Or would you rather have the person who is constantly there, unrelentingly just like caring about what they're doing, you know? Because when a project gets tough or you have some deadline change or some weird crap happen, like we had this event project we were working on where the entire brand got thrown out a week and a half before it was due. And it was like a month's worth of work. So we just did all of it over again. But they knew we would get that done and that we would do it because we care about those people and we really care about what we're doing. We're going to be there, you know? A lot of people would just be like, I don't know, pay me double and we'll figure it out. Maybe. Which is fine. Like, get your bag, but like, geez, guys, the money only works for it's such a short-term Band-Aid fix to your lack of interest in what you're doing, you know?
Wow. Wow, those words are great. I like that. I like that a lot.
I don't know. It's just really think about it today. Just find something that you want to talk about with people. And whether it's posting something in your caption when you make something on Instagram or filming yourself talking about something you're interested in or screen recording or whatever, make something. It would be, that's another thing. When people talk about, especially some of the older folks in the industry, like when I make some motion tip that's slightly like divisive or whatever about like, this is the downfall of our community and whatever. There isn't much of a community if it's just a bunch of people who don't really care about what we're doing and are just in it for money, you know? Like, if everybody in this is showing their passion in very different ways, because we'll all care more about some things than others, that's a really diverse group of people to work with, and that makes the industry well more attractive than it would be if there's just a couple people doing so.
Mm-hmm. Now, as I said, you should want to do it whether people care or not. Maybe like even wanting to do it in a vacuum.
Right.
I don't think that passion fully exists in a vacuum. You know what I mean? Like sometimes I could be feeling not very passionate and I could talk to Austin and it would reignite my passion for certain things. I think that like part of it can be absolutely relational. And it can be a very, very social thing to join in that and be like, oh, like kind of refinding that you really care about something.
Yeah.
And that happens for me as like a very extroverted person. I think a lot of things are linked to me talking to people and like the social experience of it all. And so oftentimes I'll find that maybe I'll like see friends or I'll go out and do something social and extroverted. And then the next day I'm like, I'm even more passionate than I thought I could be. And I don't fully understand why yet. I'll let you know when I figure that out. But it's just like part of how I work is that like once I kind of fill up some of that social battery, I'm like, oh my God, I love this motion design. I love this review stuff so very much. And that's part of how I connect to it.
I think I have some assumptions on why that happens.
Go ahead.
And I think for most people who do the same, not necessarily like being an extrovert, but like just having some interaction where somebody else is seeing your work or talking to you about it, jostles you out of this box. Mm-hmm. It lets this bounce around a little bit, you know? Mm-hmm. It upsets some things. I love that my illustrator is just totally bugging out, by the way, anytime I move something.
Yeah,
but
you're just going nuts right now.
Anyway, like, you don't necessarily have to remove this from this box on your own. If somebody else that you're talking to is able to show this abstract, just like care for something to you, they might just remove that box for you and suddenly you end up talking about it, you know? Suddenly you end up being more open with that person. It's a jostling of perspective and those sorts of things. More so than just like, it's not as passive, I guess, as it might seem. I think it's really important to have those conversations with people, especially as an like industry dominated by introverts. Like, I understand that social seems like such a daunting thing to a lot of people, but can you really be that worried when it's also a bunch of other introverts? Like, come on.
Pretty much the guaranteed response is like other people. Like, think of the response that you feel when you see other people posting their work and being open on the internet.
Yeah.
It's like a oh wow, that's really cool. I wish I was doing that. What do you think their response is? That's right. The same shit. They're gonna think the same thing. They're gonna be like, "Oh wow, that's cool. I wish I was doing that this much." Or like maybe they are doing it and they just say, "Oh wow, that's cool. Now
Yeah.
we are both doing this." It's just, it's right there, guys.
We're not in some toxic ass culture here
No one
where
is
it's
gonna
just
be
like
like,
a bunch of random people
"Fuck
being like,
this
screw
guy."
you, I hate this shit. And if they do,
Oh my
fucking
God.
whatever. It's like 0.0001% of the industry. It makes no sense to worry about that. It's ridiculous. Like the fact that I had crippling social anxiety in high school, okay? I could not talk to anybody outside of my small friend group. I didn't show I did try and show some stuff online, but it wasn't really catching on, whatever. And now I got like y'all giving a shit about this, you know? Or the
Crazy.
motion tips or any of that stuff. Like I'm not doing anything special here. I don't make motion nearly as good as ordinary folk or a bunch of these other people, but the fact that I'm here talking about it separates us from a lot of other people. And hey, I mean, if this makes it so that we don't have as much reach or pull or whatever, if everybody starts doing that, I don't care. I'd
That would be a
encourage
better
that.
industry.
I would love that industry.
I would feel honored if we could start something like that. Getting more people to post. That's fantastic. Oh my goodness.
Post something.
Post something.
Post something today.
And then write something nice about it. Be like, hey, let me tell you about how much I care. Something
don't-
like that.
Don't care what the reaction is. Nobody watched the vlogs really, except for this most recent one. But Noah and I didn't really care because now we have months of a time capsule for us to look back on. It can totally be for selfish reasons too. To just want to look back at like what you were thinking
I
at
like
that time.
it.
It's extremely valuable to have that perspective like written down and available for you to go back on. I can go back on the loops and remember exactly how I was feeling during each of those and read the captions and understand like what my thought process was and whatever. That's a very, very valuable thing to see like what was I doing right? What was I doing wrong? Blah, blah, blah. And be able to learn from that sort of stuff.
And like for me, some place that it shows up for me, the passion at least is in the things I post. Like technically, the things that do best on social media are not pictures. I should be posting a lot of reels and doing whatever. But like I'm still making posters every week. I'm still posting just pictures. I don't care that they don't perform as well because I just want to do it. I just want to do it and I'm just going to keep doing it. So I'm just going to like I don't care if people are necessarily like I really like this style or whatever that I do. I'm like I'm just going to do the thing that interests me. I'm just going to keep posting these little fun things because I think they're fun. So I'm just going to keep doing it. Like and I don't care if people like it or not. I'll put like some strange reference that I find hilarious in the caption. Nobody else gets it. I'll be like buffalo, 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 and that's my caption. I don't care if people are like, that's funny or like that's so weird. What is wrong with him? Whatever. I think it's hilarious. And then maybe I'll get into like, hey, this is why I care about this. This is how long it took, and I love putting that in there too. But like at the end of the day, man, do it for you. Because you're the only person that's going to be there at the end.
True. Really dive in and just live in that feeling of just only doing shit that you want to and care about. Because, again,
live for yourself.
You can relish in the fact that 99.9% of other people will not take that step to put in that amount of effort. And it's not even that much effort. It does not take much at all. If anything, it should make everything feel lighter, you know?
Yeah. I think it's a good awareness to be like, oh, these things that I'm feeling, like I'm not feeling them in a vacuum. Probably a lot of other people are feeling them. Like in that kind of way, like you're not special. You're not the only one that feels these things. So those hurdles that you see in front of you, like, oh, this resistance I have to posting and putting myself out there, like probably everybody else is feeling that too.
Yep.
And you're seeing the very few people that actually get past it and post online, and you're being like, oh, wow, that's really cool. I should do that. Can you
Just
imagine
do it.
if everybody did that? Social media would have like double, triple the numbers. You know what I mean? Probably more.
It'd
like
be a
so
way
many
more
people are
active
in your position
community.
as well.
That's why
Just
LinkedIn does well right
through
now,
it.
by the way. That's one of the only places where people are actually doing that because the whole platform is just people's thoughts rather than just like, here's another animation I made. Please don't judge me. Please don't judge my animation. Please, thank you. Please let me like close myself off and be in my shell. Thank you. Like,
Mm-hmm.
come on, guys. It makes you. That's the only thing that makes you relatable is showing that you care about something as a person. That's it. People can relate to your art, I guess, but it's way easier if you just tell them how you're feeling about things instead of having them have to try and interpret it, you know?
Exactly. If I could
Anyway.
just, honestly, I like what I said for a second there. If I could just distill most of this down, I would say, like, work and live for yourself. Do it for you because you're the only person that's going to be there at the end of the day.
But also, you'll want some people to tag along, so just show that openly. Don't be closed off. But don't
Do it for
try
you
to
and then
like cater
post that
towards
shit.
other people, you know?
Yeah, it's when you start doing things because, like for other people, because you think that they're gonna think something about you, in service of other people in that kind of negative way,
Yeah.
that it can get destructive to you. Do it because you care. Maybe you really care about doing things for other people. That's fantastic. But if you don't, you're sure as hell not gonna. It's not gonna be sustainable.
Yeah.
So let that passion grow. Feed it.
Like a little bird.
Don't smother it.
Now, I know we have a couple questions in the chat, so I want to make sure we get through those because people had a
Me too.
bunch of different ones. Hold on. What's the best advice for... Oh, well, okay, hold on. Sorry. We actually did get a lot of good questions, so we'll just go through those. We might not even do crits, and well, I mean, we'll do Rex, but we just might not do crits today.
Okay.
Viewership drops in half. These people waiting to get their stuff reviewed. Anyway. Okay. Nick Notion says, would you consider adding keyboard input in your live streams? It's extremely helpful for workflow. Sorry for this being off topic. Potentially,
Awesome.
maybe. We will see.
Keyboard input? Is
Like-
that not like short keys? Because you have a stream deck. That's cool.
No. Keyboard input meaning it's showing what keystrokes we're doing on screen.
Oh. Yeah,
Yeah.
maybe.
Maybe. Potentially. Rocky says, what's the best advice you give for not getting distracted by many options? Example, if you do everything 2D, 3D, and or illustration and ended up not doing anything well.
That's a good
Find
question.
which area you like most, or zoom out a little bit larger. And if you like doing all of those things, I actually had the same sort of conversation that spurred this discussion. Was somebody really enjoys like a pretty multidisciplinary approach and likes a lot of things like 2D, 3D, audio, all sorts of different stuff. All right? But the bigger goal they were trying to get to was just like they needed to zoom out and be like, oh, I need to make this piece. Like I can envision this piece and I need to make it. And then it doesn't matter what tools you use. You don't have to have each of those be in a vacuum. You can combine those things and focus like a little bit further out on like what you actually want to make. See, this is another thing where it's like just it's too narrow of what you're trying to focus on. You don't have to like
You don't
niche
have to
down
go
like
down
that.
the
You should
beaten
just
paths. You know what I mean?
the thing you would care about, I assume, would be like something that you want to create, not necessarily like one particular medium. And on the other hand, maybe you have one of those mediums that you really prefer to the others, and in that case, just do that one. I don't know. That's what I would say.
I agree. Like I love typography and I love poster design and I love all kinds of stuff. And so I'm like, all right, I'm gonna do a typographic poster. Like I'm gonna just put all the things that I like and be like, ooh, that's pretty. I'm gonna just put them into one thing.
That's right.
Because those are the bits I care about. And I can leave out designing a whole font and I can leave out all the things that seem tedious to me. Like you get to pick and choose how all that passion expresses itself and you get to go explore those things. And maybe you like illustration, but you only like illustrating this kind of thing. Like that's fine. Take that, combine it with something else you love. And that's how you get like unique, interesting, creative things. That's how you start to find, I think that's also sort of part of how people start finding their styles is it's just like through the things that they just like doing. Like I like this part of illustration. I like this part of whatever. Okay, great. Do that.
Agreed. He says, I think I lost it being passion because I am making the things I don't want to make, question mark. Could be. Very well
Yeah.
could be.
Probably.
Zoom out and
But you didn't lose it
See where it
completely.
takes
You
you.
just hit it.
yeah.
It's just a shy layer.
You
right
you
now.
burnt it out for a sec. You kept it in that box. Gotta open it up.
Smothered it.
There's likely something that you want to do, and then you can figure out how to plug that in. If motion is something you're really passionate about, you know?
I guess in the metaphor that we're going with, it would turn to like it would be smoldering. It would be embers. You know what I mean?
Yes.
but or like hot coals, but that doesn't mean the fire's out. You can still light a fire with that. You just have to give it some fuel.
Jet's name off says, since I've been working, learning things is so damn hard with passion. I have a hard time actively going and seeking out, especially technical things with motion at this point. But that's also because it's just not really necessary for me. Like I have other people on the team that are way better than me at a lot of aspects of motion. So it's just not a good use of my efforts to spend a bunch of time studying and learning new techniques when I could be doing something else, like finding other people to bring on the team or other ways to run the business or those sorts of things. And I think a lot of the times that want to learn more, or that lack of a want to learn more things, or finding that difficult, is purely because you've just been working for so long and you probably feel like, well, okay, if I've been working for a while, I probably don't need these other, do I really need to get that much more out of this, And to me, that signals maybe there's more of a diversity that could be had in terms of like the work that's being done, and then that inherently like forces you to learn some new things. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
All very assumptive of me, and not really just like I don't know for sure, but that's my guess. It Shoham says, sometimes I feel like I love motion design and editing, but in 10 or 20 years, I'm going to start to hate it for some reason. I mean, if I'm still doing as much animation as I'm doing now in 10 to 20 years, I'd probably feel the same way. But it's that example that I showed where it's that passion bubble in the center, and there's a bunch of other bubbles that you go grab, like a Gario or something. You have to get the other bubbles. And as long as you're doing that, then like, it never really gets stale. You just find other ways to work with it,
Mm-hmm. Like maybe if you think, oh, if I'm doing motion design and editing in 10 years, I'm going to hate it. But I think that's with your brain thinking, oh, if I'm doing the same motion design and the same editing in 10 years, I'm going to hate it. But like, you probably won't. It'll evolve. Maybe you'll find, let's say it stays at least motion design and editing. Maybe you'll find that you're like editing movies, or maybe you find that your motion design is in a different field and you really love it expressed through like title sequences or something. Like it could be completely different, but yet the same sort of thing. It's just, it can express differently. And maybe your motion design leads you into like, oh, I actually really just like designing. I really like designing for this kind of thing. And like there it evolves into that. Like, but you still have all of it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. I got you.
So it just evolves.
It evolves, and it can also like do a throwback to some of the stuff that you used to like way back when. Like I made that loop because I missed the ones I was doing in the middle of last year.
It can be kind of seen as like a tree, I think, where like maybe there's a couple trunks to this tree, and those are like some of your core values and things that you just really deeply care about, and then it goes up and expresses itself in like maybe it's motion design, and maybe it's because you care about, I don't know, so many things. It's weird and complex, this strange metaphor, but it goes out into its rivers, into its branches, and expresses itself in all these different ways. And you can kind of be like, okay, well, I love this, so I probably also love this. And then you bring like two branches together, and it makes a bigger branch. Yeah, okay, I'm done with my metaphor.
It Shoham also says, and there's a couple questions above it, but this one I thought was pretty well related. I tried many things, and it's a hell of a struggle. You really feel like doing something, but your mind is completely empty. That's why I streamed, to be able to make that loop. That's another way that, like, maybe it's just for me, I don't know, but I feel like it could be pretty applicable to others too. I feel like a lot of us just have an accountability issue, and it can be really hard to have ourselves be the only thing to motivate us to get things done.
All doubt.
And so I was feeling the exact same thing. I sat in this office for like 6 hours on Saturday and could not get anywhere. It just was not happening. I designed like 2 frames because I was able to get myself in the headspace of like, I don't have to care. I'm just going to make what I want to make. Let me just explore this. I didn't even storyboard. I didn't come up with a motion script. I just was like making frames. And I was like, I guess I'll figure out how to fit these together or something later. Like I just let that be a later problem. But then I would find myself like after every step, it was so easy to just be like, I'm gonna play a game of Overwatch, or I'm gonna do this. Like I kept finding anything to do to like slow down my progress until eventually it just grinded to a halt, and I couldn't bring myself back out of that. So then when I came back to the office later that night, I was like, I might have enough motivation to do this. I don't know, but I really wanted to. Like I knew I wanted to animate, and I knew it would be good. And what has really helped me throughout this whole social media journey is it has become way easier to defeat that imposter syndrome, and also just like myself sitting there like trying to find anything else to do, because I have y'all now, you know.
Aw.
Like I turned on the stream because I knew I would get it done. Like sitting there and chatting with people who like care about the work that I'm doing is an incredibly valuable thing to like, it's an incredible motivator, you know? And that's the thing that I really just want for everybody, is the ability to have your imposter syndrome just completely shut the hell up, because you're actively getting people commenting about like the things they like about your work, and sometimes things that they don't like, but like the vast majority of comments are incredibly nice. And I mean, I feel like even on some work that I've seen that isn't super great, just depending on where you're at in the industry, there are always people that can learn from you, you know, regardless of what you're doing or how good you think it is compared to X, Y, and Z or something like that. So it was natural for me to just be like, I'll just stream. And wouldn't you know, give it 4 hours and I had a whole finished thing, and I really had fun. I thought it was great, and it's one of my favorite things that I've made. So that's what I would do. If you really feel like doing something but your mind is empty, streaming isn't necessarily the best answer. It works really well for me, but like finding a way to document that feeling and that process and just talk to people about it can really jumpstart that and sort of disarm yourself from attacking yourself over and over again, you know? Shoham also says, do you guys think that recreating motion videos of others as a beginner is a good or bad thing? Like for times when you have nowhere to start, no ideas, and no audio? I don't think it's necessarily a good or bad thing either way. I think it's just an option of something that you can do. I would think it might be more helpful. I mean, I think that can be very helpful for learning the technical in some ways to get some techniques down. But I think ultimately the best way to learn is going to be following like what I find interesting about this, you know, and pulling myself in that direction. Like I said, I mean, I was making things out of that passion ever since I started, you know? I wasn't just sitting there like, I want to make this thing from this tutorial or make this other video or whatever. I was only doing those when I already had something in mind that I couldn't technically accomplish yet. And the way that I even was able to like already envision the thing I wanted to make, like have that creative bank so that my mind isn't so blank, was simply by just like, I love motion design. So I'm going to consume dozens and dozens and dozens of motion reels from all different years and times and whatever. And then I built up my little library of things where I can be like, I could make a scene like that one that I remember, or like this one that I remember, or whatever, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Give yourself some options to go back through.
This is top of mind for me, so I'm gonna just say it.
Yeah, go for it.
Sean is saying like we're the only people that could understand him, because when they speak to other people, they think it's weird or just stupid. I want to say this about doing something that you're very passionate about. Like when I talk about, I mean, I kind of don't do it very often, but when I talk about reviewing motion design to people who aren't in this space, who aren't like Austin, then like they don't get it.
No, I always
And
oversimplify.
I'm not able to expect them to do it because they're not in it. Austin and I can relate on this because we have like similar levels of passion and we really care
We
about
both
this
have
thing.
the craziness over this.
But here's the thing, when you get really far, not necessarily really far, but when you get passionate and when you get like into more than the public, more than general population, when you get into something, whether it be like a little niche or just anything really, when you really care about something, it's kind of a lonely place to be. It's not a bad place to be, but it can be a little bit of a lonely place to be because the people who don't get it and the people who aren't really that passionate are not going to be able to connect with you on that. And I think that's just key to understanding. Like these people just aren't able to connect with this passion and this like deep care that you have for this. And it's kind of hard to it can be a little lonely and little like, oh man, that sucks. But I think that's another reason to join the Discord and
Look at the description.
find a community that like you can at least maybe like just one friend that you can
Like
really
here.
talk about this stuff with.
I don't think I could possibly make a better pitch for the Discord than if you have that feeling. We have found 2,800 other people that give a shit about this stuff, and they're all in the Discord. And there's thousands more people. Ben Marriott has 600,000 subscribers for a reason, you know? Like there's a lot of people that care about this, but that's another reason, like Noah is saying, to really dive in and like show off that passion, especially on social, because it can reach the people who it's like such an amazing feeling to, especially when like the Instagram was really blowing up, to be like, this many people also care about this? What?
Yeah.
That's cool. Okay, now I have people to talk about this with. You know, it's an outlet for that passion. Otherwise, you're just talking to yourself about it. And of course, you would feel like nobody would understand you if you're not like going and finding. There's me and Noah all over the place in terms of people who care about this stuff. We just might be the most vocal. Also, speaking of vocal, I was driving into work this morning. I saw one of those little like yard signs on the side of the road. And I was just glancing over and I was like, oh, that's weird. That looks familiar. And it was Christo's face.
Oh my God.
He's doing some talk here or something in the next
so
couple weeks, but I was like, what the hell's going on here? Anyway, like, there's such a small group of people that's actually really vocal about these things. Otherwise, it's like people inner workings, like talking to each other in the industry or whatever. But like people who are actually shouting from the mountaintops, like what they care about, you're in the like tens of people or something.
Yeah.
It's such a small group.
If you can talk about something and be passionate enough in that talk to make people think that you're weird or stupid, then that's fantastic, honestly.
Because there's other people who will...
More power to you. That means you really care.
There's other people that are really stick to that. Like when we have a little bit of controversy or like some disagreement or something with like one of the motion tips or whatever, it's kind of exciting because it means that like we're making a statement. Like we're saying something. We're showing our personality in a way that like, if we were just saying stuff that everybody agreed with all the time everywhere, that doesn't work. There's a reason that like bad news or like bad things are prevalent in the news more, and like that goes into a whole other topic and whatever. But if everything's good all the time, everybody gets complacent and it doesn't mean anything, you know? And so being able to make a statement and like really drive into that passion, you're going to be a little divisive and scare some people off. But that means that while those people might strongly disagree with something you say, there's likely another group of people that will really, really agree with you and align based on those beliefs or something, which just gets you a really, really tight-knit group of people, you know?
Yeah.
Make stronger bonds that way.
It's like I don't necessarily know what to label this giant blob that's in my head, but let's label it like society or like it's kind of more of a gradient, I suppose. But let's say that you really care about something kind of specific and you just go off in that direction. There's like gradient, like the center of it is where all the people are going to be, and you go off in that direction. You're kind of pushing the boundaries, and it's going to be kind of lonely, and you're pushing the boundaries, but like eventually, if you push hard enough, the whole blob's going to shift a little bit in that direction. And that's why the people who kind of change society and change different the people who are leaders, I suppose, in whatever they're leaders of, are the ones that are doing the things that nobody else is kind of willing to do, or they care enough to go to places that people aren't in their passion. And I think that's beautiful. And then that's just a direct expression of like, hey, I really care about this thing. I'm going to talk about it to these people. And now they think like that's stupid or that's crazy. Like that's just pointing to that you're off in that direction, and you're kind of pushing in a lovely way that there aren't a lot of people pushing in, that you care enough to be doing that. And that's fantastic.
It's a good metric. It's a good signal that that's happening. And
Absolutely.
I just want to call out that, like, I realize some of this has sounded like, go be influencers, everybody. But that's not, everybody is influential. That's just how it is, you know? And it's not like, I'm not telling everybody to go do that for the purposes of, like, getting sponsorships or being a content creator or any of that shit. But, like, in my mind, that's what social media is for. And that's, like, what better thing than to show that you care about something, you know?
Yeah.
what does it get better than expressing that? I don't think so. And there's one more question that I want to get through because we are out of time. So we also won't even get to Rex today. So I'll just save those for tomorrow. Last thing from Shoham, and I want to dive into this. Says it does feel like that from time to time, but it's always hard to find people to talk about the things that interest you both. Whenever I go on Revi's Discord, I just feel so irrelevant in there. Well, I gotta know why that is.
Yeah. Why?
Because
it seems like it's kind of personal messaging.
Yeah.
That you're telling yourself that you're irrelevant. People aren't irrelevant. Nobody's irrelevant.
That's just not a thing. Especially in an industry as small as ours. It's just not the case. Especially in a creative field, everybody is essentially an artist. So how could you possibly be irrelevant in that? It's literally expression of your own interests. I don't know.
Nothing's really irrelevant.
Yeah, it's all feeling based.
Especially if you like push hard enough and you like really care about something, and you just do it and do it and do it, and then you like share it. Like then all of a sudden you are what is relevance. You know what I mean? Like that's just share your passion. That's about as relevant as it can be.
Yeah, I think that feeling of irrelevancy seems more like a fear of just like how you think you'll be perceived or something rather than the actual case, because I can tell you confidently that nobody is out there in that Discord to hurt anybody or like push anybody away or any of that sort of stuff. Everybody seems incredibly supportive. So I think that might just be something that has to be proven to you if you post something or something like that. Like when I was posting the loops, I never would have thought that people gave a shit, really. I was making them because I was tired of making really slow corporate shit for some of the clients we had at the time. And then people liked them. And that's cool. Like it then felt really great to post each week or something to like just people would tell me that things that made me realize like, oh, people actually do give a shit about this. Like it doesn't matter that much. But I wouldn't have had those thoughts on my own. It would have just been the imposter syndrome moment, you know? That's how you defeat that.
Oh yeah.
Those feelings. It's by opening up. Seems counterintuitive, but it's Shoham. See, I was right. Shoham says, yeah, but you always feel like, oh, my posts are so bad, man. I can't compare it to them. It doesn't matter. Just shut that comparison down.
Where do you think they fucking started? Honestly.
I don't have shit on ordinary folk, but I still post stuff anyway.
Yeah, you don't have to be like, the best. To just show your passion and keep making stuff. And the only way to get there, if you want to be realistic here, is to just wade through the shit.
Yep.
Like every single person that you're like, oh, my posts don't compare to, like they started exactly where you are. Yep. They started thinking the same thing about some other people, and then they kept going, and now they're in a more comfortable spot.
And you have to.
I can confidently say that's just how it goes.
You can only grow by confronting that shit. That's the only way. Otherwise, you are firmly in your passion box right now. Like that's exactly what that is. It's that feeling is keeping you in there. The only way to grow is going to be breaking through that and relieving yourself of that need for like being like somebody else. Because here, I'll also tell you the secret. If you're constantly trying to be like somebody else, you're only going to be behind forever. Because they're just going to continually be ahead by just being themselves, you know?
But if you say, fuck that, and then just go off in your own direction.
And it doesn't matter.
You're going to go, man.
Then some people will compare to you. You know? And that was
very good questions. Thank you for putting them in the chat.
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
No, don't feel bad for taking 10 minutes of the show. We're here to answer questions from chat and talk about these things. That's what it's for. You're
People probably
making the show right now.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate you. And on that note, that's the show.
That's the show. That was a great conversation. I hope you guys got something from it.
Thanks for hanging. And if y'all have more questions and things on that, because I know that's we kind of glossed over a lot of things because that's a pretty in-depth topic. Save them for tomorrow. We'll be back and we'll answer some more questions. But in the meantime, if you want to get your work critiqued, there's a link down in the description. It takes you to a Google form. There is also a link to the Revi Discord that we've talked about, where everyone is so nice. Right. And also use hashtag Daily Motion Show when you post on social, and we just might wreck it. We will see y'all